Good evening, everyone. I'm Georgia Davis, and welcome to AZ Illustrated Nature. Tonight we'll tell you about the good, the bad, and the artificial. A native plant is showing promising results as a turf grass. An invasive species is multiplying rapidly in our region, and a growing number of people are turning to synthetic lawns for that lush green look. Also, hundreds of dogs and cats are in need of new homes, but do they make good gifts for the holidays? First, here's a look at today's top stories.
A review of Child Protective Services has uncovered an additional 1,800 reports of child abuse or neglect that were ignored. Those cases are added to the thousands of ignored cases discovered a few weeks ago. A number of committees and blue ribbon panels at the state capitol are looking at what went wrong at CPS. A congressional subcommittee met in Tucson today to discuss cross-border trade. 5 members of Congress, including 4 from Arizona, met in the Tucson City Council chambers to talk about trade with Mexico.
In 2012, the year for which we have the most recent statistics, Arizona exported nearly $6.3 billion in goods and services to Mexico. And of course, this number totals over 30% of all of Arizona's exports. So the importance of having a smooth and efficient relationship with our largest trading partner cannot be overemphasized here in Arizona.
Many of those testifying expressed concerns about long wait times for commercial vehicles trying to cross the U.S.-Mexico border. Some suggestions for solutions included allowing trucking companies to pay a premium for faster service. And the Pima County Health Department and the Vail School District are holding a meeting this week on the recent cases of whooping cough in that district. This year, 83 cases of whooping cough have been identified in Pima County. And that's a look at tonight's headlines.
Lawns in this country require tons of fertilizers and pesticides and millions of gallons of water each year. As clean, safe water becomes harder to find in many parts of the world, including arid regions like Arizona, people are rethinking landscaping. In this next segment, we consider one option, a native plant called buffalo grass, not to be confused with Buffelgrass, which is an invasive species from Africa and elsewhere.
Lawns are a common part of the American landscape at millions of homes and schools, but the type of grass that's growing in most yards is getting a closer look by many scientists and nurseries. This is an example right here. These Tucson children are playing football on what appears to be a standard lawn, but it's actually buffalo grass, a native plant that is attracting more attention from novices and experts like Mohammed Pesarakli.
Just cut this, take it home, plant this one, become plant by itself.
Pesarakli is a research professor at the University of Arizona School of Plant Sciences. He says buffalo grass, not to be confused with Buffelgrass, is an endemic plant to North America, and it's described as the nation's only major native turf grass, named after the iconic grasslands animal that thrived in our prairies.
It started the name, it says buffaloes were grazing in this grass, and how from there they got it and became turf.
Pesarakli has been working with turfgrass and teaching about it since the 1990s, but in recent years the focus on this topic has been escalating due to growing human populations and diminishing resources. Lawns usually require fertilizer, herbicides, and lots of water to stay healthy, so homeowners and others are seeking more environmentally friendly and sustainable options. Buffalo grass may be especially useful in arid regions such as ours.
I recommend it as a lawn mainly right now. You know, we have always water problem everywhere, especially in desert areas, southwest Arizona, all that. So this is excellent one for lawn.
By using selective breeding, scientists have created more than a dozen varieties of buffalo grass. You can find a couple of them at Savannah Nursery in Tucson, where Chris Shipley is the owner.
We sell it here because I believe this grass is better for our environment and better than the alternatives that are out there today that we use. It is very soft to sit on.
Shipley says he likes buffalo grass because it is drought tolerant and requires relatively low maintenance.
It makes me very happy not have to mow it very often. A lot of people don't want to mow their lawn every 5 days. And so As a man, I say, hooray, we don't have to mow our lawns maybe once a month, or not even at all. It only grows to 8 inches max.
Shipley says the varieties of buffalo grass that he sells at the nursery are sterile, require relatively little water, and thrive with lots of sunshine. The grass does not do well in soils that have a high content of salt, but it is adapted to sandy soils.
It is very dense if you look here, and that naturally keeps the weeds out quite good. And so there's very little weeding that has to be done on this lawn.
He's been selling buffalo grass at Savannah Nursery for a few years. His buyers have included customers from Tucson and Phoenix for residential and commercial uses.
These are mostly residential homeowners that want an alternative to Bermuda grass or artificial turf. They're not ready to make the switch to artificial turf, but they want something easier and better for the environment. This is a great alternative for them. Commercial use is actually right in the community of Savannah here. There's the Savannah Middle School has probably a 10,000 square foot lawn that's been in for 2 years now.
In case you're interested in this type of grass, experts have some tips. Buffalo grass is a warm season plant. In Arizona, it goes dormant during the late fall and winter, but returns to life in the springtime. It does not grow fast like other grasses, so it's not a wise choice for soccer or football fields, which can get torn up by players and their cleats. Still, for people who are looking for a patch of green during our long, warm months, you may want to consider this North American native for your property.
Buffelgrass is an invasive species that's going on throughout the Sonoran Desert and is trying to be eradicated. Buffalo grass is a native grass, and this is what we're looking at here today. For a backyard lawn, it's ideal for kids to play on. It doesn't have very many allergenic properties. A lot of people can enjoy it. It's been a great grass for us.
A growing number of people are trying to spread the word and promote the grass, hoping it can take root and thrive on many more properties.
Now we'll focus on invasive buffelgrass and ongoing efforts to eradicate it. Lindy Bringham is the executive director of the Southern Arizona Buffelgrass Coordination Center. Clair Zucker is the director of the Sustainable Environment Program for Pima Association of Governments. She is also on the board of directors for the Buffelgrass Coordination Center. Thank you to both of you for coming in today. So let's first start by talking about the Southern Arizona Buffelgrass Coordination Center. So what is this organization?
This organization is what it says, a coordination center, because buffelgrass is an invasive species that doesn't respect boundaries. So it has to be a multi-jurisdictional effort to control it. And so the center is here for all of the land managers in the area that have to deal with buffelgrass.
You actually hit on something I was interested in talking about right away, a regional problem. So Pima County seems to have a lot of people really involved in buffelgrass eradication. How widespread is that effort, physically, geographically?
Well, we have people all over the county working on it. We have volunteers, we have the county itself, we have the city of Tucson. It's all over this area because this is the perfect climate and for it to grow. And that's why it's so extensive here.
Is that the case across the region, or the regional partnerships?
Pretty much, yes. It has elevational limits, and so you don't see it growing up into the mountains, but where it's warm and dry, it has a foothold.
Okay, so are there other counties or other states involved in this effort too, when you say it's coordinated?
We're primarily coordinating in Arizona. Maricopa has an issue too. If you go north through Pinal and Maricopa, there's also issues there. And so we're working with every region in the state that has buffelgrass.
Okay, so we're talking within Arizona
Within Arizona at this point, yes.
Okay, all right, well, I'm going to turn it over to you, Claire. So with the Pima Association of Governments, so what is the PAG's role in all of this?
Okay, well, and as she's talking about the regional aspect, of course, that's something that we're very concerned about. So Pima Association of Governments actually coordinates all the different governments in the region, and we have them sitting on our board of directors. So we sort of work at their behest, and it's a concern for the whole region. One of the reasons PAG's so involved is that it's not just an environmental problem. It's also hits transportation issues, and it also hits our economic vitality in the region. And this is sort of how that goes. When the buffelgrass blooms and then seeds, the seeds go right into the roads, and down those roads go cars. and the cars pick up the seeds in their tires and take it on down the road. And you can see that. You can drive down the road and you can see that it will be lined with buffelgrass, and sometimes hasn't even gotten to the fields adjacent. So that's why it's a transportation issue and why we're concerned about it at PAG. Much of what we do is transportation planning in addition to the environmental work. And then of course it hits our economy because as you know, buffelgrass burns and burns hot, spreads fast, and that takes our resources to fight those fires. And also, as it spreads across our beautiful vistas, the reason everybody comes here, many of us have come here for that, it threatens that sort of linchpin in our sort of economy, bringing people, companies here, and so we're concerned about it for all those reasons.
Right, and I guess it's actually even creating corridors up into some of the Sky Islands, so we're linking these different environments.
It adds a fuel source between the urban environment and the mountain environment, something that we've never had before. And we have desert vegetation that is just not capable of fighting off those fires, especially fires this hot. But it extends right into our neighborhoods. That's the other thing. It's not just a desert issue anymore, or a desert vegetation issue. It's really a concern for all of us.
Right.
So.
Well, so let's go ahead and talk about buffelgrass. So this kind of surprised me because it's so green. It's so full of seeds. I didn't really expect this, but this is buffelgrass.
This is buffelgrass in all its glory, yes. It's a very drought-adapted plant, and so what you see is when it's dry, it goes into a dormant phase. It's a straw-colored plant, but as soon as it rains, it takes advantage of every little bit of that rain, and it greens up and it goes to seed. So and as you can see, it makes a lot of seed, and it's a very light seed, and so it's windborne. That's why it travels along the corridors, the highways, because the cars take it along. And it spreads extensively.
So how many grasses are here in Arizona, and how many are native grasses? Do you have a sense of that? So like how many varieties of grasses are there?
We have very many grasses, and I really don't know the answer to the numbers. But we also have a lot of invasive grasses, but this is one of the worst of the invasive grasses that we have.
And I have to admit, for me, one of the challenges is identifying this grass versus other grasses that are from here. So
right,
not
exactly.
harmful. So how do you tell a buffelgrass from another grass?
Well, this is a bunch grass. We do have plants in bunch grasses in Arizona. This particular one looks more tangly than most of them. The seed head is characteristic, and when the seeds are off of it, so this is where the seeds would be growing, this is called a rachis, and it's very, very rough. And so even if you didn't see this plant like this with the seeds on it, you would find these left, and that's very identifying for this particular plant.
Oh, interesting. And how about the roots too? I've heard they bunch at the roots, and sometimes you can tell from that. Is that true?
Well, if you're identifying plants and you're looking out in the landscape, you don't usually see the roots. So characterizing it from the above ground points are probably the best way to go.
A better way to do it. Okay, so let's talk about eradicating this plant. So what kinds of efforts are going on here in Pima County?
All kinds of things.
We don't actually say eradication, and that's one of the points that we want to make. This is so extensive that eradication is impossible at this point in time. This is across the landscape. This is in our federal lands, our state lands, our private lands. What we need to do is learn to manage it in those areas that are most important to us. So one of the things that the Coordination Center has done is done a risk assessment across the landscape. And we brought all the land managers together to identify those places that were most important for us to manage. And then we put a lot of effort into those areas. So for instance, Saguaro National Park. So that's very important that the park maintain the saguaros. That's what it's all about. So that's a place that we put a lot of effort into. We also want to manage it across the urban landscape because it's a fire hazard for the people living in that area. So those are the types of things we do, is identify the most important areas to manage and control.
Interesting. Okay, so management, not eradication.
Yeah. We're all trying to pull it out. And we hold Beat Back Buffelgrass Day. That's one thing that we do. And now we're transitioning into Beat Back Buffelgrass Day every day.
So one of the things that's really important is, again, this is across the entire landscape, so everybody needs to be involved. And we have Beat Back Buffelgrass Day to put the word out to people that this is something that's important that everybody needs to work on. So even in your neighborhoods, your homeowners associations, those things are important. And Beat Back Buffelgrass Day is about getting everybody together and getting some exercise on a particular day. And we actually get a lot of buffelgrass pulled out on that day. And people learn how to identify it and how to pull it. And you'd asked about how to control it. There's two ways. Pulling it out is obviously the most effective way because you eliminate it immediately and you eliminate the fire threat immediately. But it's very labor intensive. These plants can be huge. So as you mentioned, this was green. When it's green, you can spray it with herbicide. And it's a very effective control method too, but it has to be green.
Just Roundup.
Roundup will do it.
Yeah, that'll do it.
So tell me about, Claire, any other kinds of efforts that are going on and how people, you get volunteers and participants?
Well, one thing we're actually doing, and this is something that SABC, the Southern Arizona Buffelgrass Coordination Center, has worked on, is creating a way for people to report what they're seeing and report what they've removed on the website. So you can become an involved citizen scientist, helper, participant in the whole fight. And so that's a great thing. And I understand from Lindy that there's the development of an app that's coming up, right?
Right. So people can not only go on our website and report buffelgrass and map it if they like, but we now have a phone app so that when people are in the neighborhood and they see buffelgrass, they can map it right on their phone.
Oh, interesting. So they're actually putting like GPS coordinates and going from there. Mm-hmm. Wow. And I assume all this is being kept in a database somewhere?
Yes.
So again, one of the efforts to help manage buffelgrass is a central mapping system. And so that's one of the things that SABC is contributing to this effort is a centralized mapping system. And this is input into that mapping system.
Wow. Okay. And so how much success have we had to this point in trying to manage buffelgrass?
Again, it depends on the area and how extensive it is. Saguaro National Park has made a big dent into the effort. There's volunteers that go out in Pima County into the Tucson Mountain Park that over the last several years have really made an impact on the amount of buffelgrass that's in that area.
Yeah, and one of the things that I come up against a lot of times is this concept that if you're controlling it, you're not actually doing any good. If you're not eradicating it, you're not successful, which is not true. In fact, what we find is, especially in areas like in the mountain areas where we're going in, even in big fields full of it, you're taking out the buffelgrass, it really often does not reestablish very quickly. So there are some areas where maybe there's a lot of wind going through there and a lot of neighboring buffelgrass where it will come back. But so it can be very, very successful. And so it's worth people's efforts. And another thing that's really warms your heart is realizing how much awareness there is about buffelgrass. You can go anywhere, and when you mention this environmental hazard, people know what you're talking about. They ask you questions. They've seen it pulled, and so, and I am on the board of SABC, and I have to say, I'm just very pleased with this consciousness raising, because we can't do it alone. Our municipalities cannot afford to go, and they can't enter private property for one thing. We have to have people doing it on their own with us, and so it has to be that way.
All right, well, on that note, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you both of you for coming in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, a report on Islamists in Syria, plus rock legend Carlos Santana. That's Monday on the PBS NewsHour.
After the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, BP agreed to pay for the damage. Now it's challenging $500 million of claims from businesses like farms and printers, saying they weren't affected by the spill.
Now we're seeing what parties often do with this type of litigation, drag it out. And I think that's what BP's strategy is at this point.
The future of the BP settlement. That's on the next Morning Edition from NPR News.
We have been talking about grasses and lawns today, and now we take a look at the growing interest in artificial turf. Proponents have been installing it at a growing number of school campuses, including in the Marana Unified School District. The synthetic material saves on water and other resources, but experts say the turf is not completely maintenance-free. This story is produced by University of Arizona journalism student Mo Olivas, who is an apprentice with us at Arizona Public Media.
Real grass is obviously a very nice, soft, comfortable surface for recreation and lots of other activities. Stays nice and cool. Some of the drawbacks are that it obviously consumes a lot of water. Grass consumes quite a bit more water per square foot than our native drought tolerance plants do. Artificial turf has really grown in popularity over the past 10 years or so. Primarily, it started out in recreational athletic settings, a lot of professional sports and college sports in particular. Even high schools now are installing artificial turf as an alternative to real grass. And more recently, there's been a lot of growth in the residential sector with artificial turf, people using it in backyards as a substitute for real lawn.
I actually replaced my lawn some 8-9 years ago. The company that did my lawn knew I was a local business person and wanted me to invest with them, and eventually I just invested in our own company and started Tucson Turf. And you know, I've started with just a few family members, and we've grown to a dozen employees, all family and lifetime friends. When I had lawn back here, I got to a point, I had 2 children at the time. Now I have 6, so I can't imagine now having to take care of lawn. But it was a constant. It was twice a week hiring my brother. It was like having another job, and quite frankly, I didn't need another job. When you install artificial turf, you sit there. I mean, I would sit and eat dinner and open my blinds, and my wife would say, "What are you doing?" And I'd say, "I'm just admiring this lawn," because knowing the hard work it would have taken and the money and the time to make a lawn that green all the time, I just sat there in amazement at how beautiful it was, and I do nothing.
We passed a bond a couple years back, and part of that bond was for security, and so we upgraded our security cameras and other things with security. We did technology, and then a big part of that also with athletic facilities. We did the turf grass this year. I'm very, very excited about that. It's good for the environment, it's good for our kids, it's good for our program.
It's a lot more accessible and a lot more easier to get out, get our practice in, and do our daily activities on it. Not a lot of maintenance and stuff, so it's made my job a whole lot easier. So I think the grass fields are great, but at the same time they require a lot of upkeep and a lot of attention throughout the year. So turf makes it a little bit easier, not as much upkeep, but at the same time you're able to get your games played and do the things you need to do.
Artificial turf doesn't consume a whole lot of water like real grass does. In fact, it consumes none, except for that in particularly hot climates, in large installations, municipalities are finding that they still have to water their artificial turf because it gets so hot in the direct sun that they actually have to cool it off to make it bearable for recreational purposes. Particularly in recreational athletic settings, is that athletes tend to take a lot of falls and slides, and if you've ever played any kind of sport on a field, you know that grass burns, just abrasion burns from falling on the turf can be a factor. So what they're finding is that on artificial turf fields, there's a much higher incidence of staph infection in the skin on athletes who get these abrasions during play compared to real grass. And so sanitizing and managing that hygiene component of artificial turf in an athletic setting is an obvious maintenance concern and something that is yet to be addressed.
Cats and dogs are part of the family in tens of millions of homes across the country, but too many animals still lack a place to live. Tonight we'll tell you about efforts to find safe, loving homes for some of these pets in southern Arizona. Justin Gallick is an animal care advocate at Pima Animal Care Center. Thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit, how many dogs and cats are out there waiting for adoption?
Right now there's about 250 dogs and cats that are waiting for adoption, and probably almost as many that are just waiting for either their owners to come and redeem them, various reasons. So those will possibly come up for adoption in the next few days.
How large is that number? I don't have any kind of reference.
We're definitely well over capacity. Right now the county, because of that, we're making an effort to put up a temporary shelter. We're actually kind of building a little pet tent city. So it'll house about 100, have an additional 100 kennels just for a portion of the available pets.
Wow, okay, and I understand that there's some special measures being taken this month to encourage adoptions?
Absolutely. We're doing free pet adoptions, as well as trying to get as much media, get the word out that we're desperately in need and we really are trying everything that we can to save more lives.
So what's going on? Why so many animals out there?
It's really hard to say. There's definitely a lot of factors. I've heard some people speak of economy. I think, in general, it's just a matter of, really targeting the spay and neuter as a way to cut off the intake.
Mm-hmm. So do you see increases in the number of animals that are turned into the shelter during some times of the year?
Right now we really haven't. Oh, in some times of the year we do. Generally speaking, it's spring and summer, although for the past year and a half it seems like it's just been steady all along.
So if somebody is thinking about adopting a pet, what kinds of things should they think about before they go in and actually do it? I mean, this is a big commitment.
Absolutely. Number one thing I would ask people to think about is, are they ready? Do they have the time? And the commitment to make for a pet. Training. Some of our pets have come in as strays and may not have the best history. Others are, owner surrendered, and it's just because say the family was sick. Some of the family, couldn't care for them for whatever reason. We definitely have dogs that are housebroken, cats that are, the perfect little lap companion. So we see out of the about 250 adoptable animals that we have right now, we have them from small breed dogs, large breed dogs, puppies, kind of the whole gamut. So I would definitely encourage anybody that's looking to adopt to come down and take a look at the shelter.
Do you do background checks on people?
We don't do a background check. We are implementing just kind of a questionnaire and a program called Meet Your Match. And what that is a program through AZPM that's designed to help the family select the right pet for them.
And we only have a few seconds left, but really quickly, do you worry about, what about unqualified adopters? Do you worry about encouraging people to adopt pets maybe who shouldn't be at this time of year?
Part of it's always a concern, but part of that is some follow-up adoptions, follow-up with the adopters, and just always being available for a resource if they have problems.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much
again
for coming in. That's our show. To post a comment on any of these stories or to keep up with the latest news, you may visit our website at azpm.org. I'm Georgia Davis. Thanks for watching.